Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For the first time comers here, my name is Sipiwo. Today I'm going to be doing one of a couple of videos that I'm going to be doing in a series where I'm trying to explain the ES6 syntax that I'm using in the application, the Pomodoro application that I recently published on my channel. You guys can see the link just pop up right now and the thumbnail. If you haven't watched it, click on it to go watch it. In this video, we're going to be focusing on destructuring, and as you guys can see, I quickly pasted this object that I already created because I want to keep this video very short. Destructuring is providing you with a variable or with a container with information in it, and I want to destructure it. I wanted to break it apart and only take out the information that I want to use and assign that to this variable. Basically what it looks like in code, it would look something like this. In the old JavaScript, we would go ahead and create a variable email that would be equal to person.email. So const email would be equal to person.email, and that will get me this email value in here. But with destructuring, what we can do, we can go ahead and say const, and I'm going to create an object, and I can say email. I can put out also, let's just say username and the email, because it's like this is the login component that we're going to use. Username, email, and I want you to pull that out from this box called person. So this box called person is gonna contain two keys or two boxes inside it, which is username, and the other box is email, and those has information that I need. So this is basically what destructuring is. It says go check in person and find the username and find the email so that I can use that information. So let's say I'm getting this information from an API, or I'm getting it from a different component or Redux or context.api, or even a JSON file. But what I want to do is that to say I want to use certain part of that file in a certain component. So let's say I have a component here in this form of a function that I'm going to create. It's called login user, and what it's going to have is a user name and also its email. Should be actually be its password, but in this case let's just take email. So I have a component that is in need of those two params in order to log this guy in, and I'm just gonna say console.log, let's do template string $username, and I want to say login as, we'll pass through that username with email, say email address, and let's do the same over here, and let's say email. So this is my component which is going to log my current user in. Now I need to pass through that information to this component, so I can go ahead and say login user, and I can pass through this person and say person dot, the first one is username, and I can go ahead and say person dot email. This would work perfectly. If I do that, let's go ahead and say node index, and as you can see, we have login as John Rock, which is the username, with email address John Doe. So I'm passing it through as person.username, person.email, but with destructuring, we can go ahead and do it in this manner. Let's say const username and email, and instead of passing it person dot, we can just pass through those variables. So I can do this and say save it, and let's do node index, and we get the same result. So that is destructuring it beforehand. We can also go ahead and destructure it inside of the function or that component. And how we do that, we can go ahead and say this params over here are going to get pulled out of a main box that we are going to send through. So instead of putting this here, we can go ahead and say put in the entire person object. Let's copy that out, put in the entire person object inside of this component slash function, and it's going to destructure what I want from that person object, the username and the email. So if I save this, it should still work. So let's say node index, as you guys see, that still works. But because I'm passing through in this person, I can now go ahead and say email, and I can say let's take his password. Do I have a password field? I don't have a password field. Maybe let's take his name. Let's take his name, and we're going to use his name. So login as name instead of username, and with this email address, let's save it, and let's go ahead and say node index, and you guys would see login as John with email address John Doe. So that is destructuring on two type of levels. You can firstly declare it outside of your component or your function, and then you can just pass through those variables, or you can destructure it in your param section of your function or your component. So you're passing through the main object and you're just pulling through what you are going to use within this function, which would be the username, email, password, or name. So let's say now you want to destructure an array, because this is just objects that we have done over here, but now you want to destructure this array, this non-tech array. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and pass through a second variable over here, a second param, which we're going to call skills. And what I can do over here, I can go ahead and say person.skills. So person.skills is going to be this object of arrays, and if I go ahead and log that out now, let me just take care of this. I'm going to remove that and just pass through skills. Let's save it. Let's clear this out and say node index. As you guys can see, there we have that object of arrays. So we have the non-tech array, the tech array, and the framework. So we can do the same on this side as well. Instead of passing through skills, we can go ahead and destructure that and say what I want is the non-tech, I want the tech, and I also want the framework arrays, which are contained within the skills object. So these are my three arrays that I want. So now I can go ahead and echo out or log out, console.log out those framework. Let's say node index, and as you see, we have React, Vue, Next.js, Node, and Express. So if I want to destructure an array to say I want to assign key values to the array that I currently have, so I'm going to go ahead and say let, and I'm going to create an array. I'm going to say primary, I'm going to say secondary, and I'm going to say the rest is equal to, let me just use the frameworks. So basically what I'm doing over here, what this destructuring is doing is say whatever is in the first position of this array, assign it to primary, in the second position assign it to secondary, and in the third position assign it to rest. So if I go ahead and console log primary, we should see React. So let's see if that is correct. Let's say node index, and as you can see we have React. So let's just clear that. So if I go and say secondary, let's say node index, we have Vue, but now currently we have rest over here, but the rest is not doing what I actually wanted to do. Because if I save this and I'll show you something, so if I say node index, it gives me next.js, which is correct because that's the third entry inside of this array. But what I want to do, I want rest to contain everything else that remains. And how I'm going to do that, to say now that I've assigned the first position to primary and I've assigned the second position to secondary, I want to assign the rest by spreading this array. So whatever remains should be saved under this rest created key. So if I save this, we should see node index, an array of Next.js, Node, and Express. So that is how we do destructuring in object, and also through param, and also destructuring an array. So basically guys, this is the type of code that you are going to see inside of that application that I've just mentioned, the Pomodoro application. If you guys haven't watched that, click on the link, go ahead and check it out. And if you need more clarity and explanation on the type of code of the EX6 code that I use in that application, hit me up in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer your question. And if you haven't done so, go ahead and click the subscribe button, click the bell notification button so that you guys get notified every time I publish a new video. And if you like this type of content, smash that like button. So until next time guys, please stay safe.